All right, back here on Inside Wrestling Radio. And today on the telephone, we have April Hunter. April got her start in wrestling with WCW as one of the NWO girls and has since wrestled around the world for various promotions and has worked with some of the biggest names in the business. She trained under wrestling legend Killer Kowalski, and she has appeared in many publications from Muscle Mag International to Playboy Magazine, as well as several independent films such as Ultimate Deathmatch 2 and Hell House. Even had appeared in her own comic book series, Code Red by Pickle Press. Her website is aprilhunter.com. She also has a Twitter page at April Hunter, and she also has official pages on Facebook. Welcome to the program, April Hunter. April, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, and I was noticing when I was working on your bio here, I know you've appeared on Howard Stern as well, and he calls himself the king of all media, but with your resume there, you could almost be the queen of all media, April.
I'm going to steal that.
You have a ton of stuff going on out there, and actually I have visited your website from time to time, and I'm going to tell you people something listening. If you haven't been to April's webpage, it's something that you absolutely need to do, right, April?
Yes, absolutely. We just actually redid it, so it's a little bit more interactive and fun now.
Lots of good stuff on April's website there. You need to make a point to go by there when you're doing your surfing there. April, you started off doing some modeling and fitness stuff like that. How did your modeling, how'd that come about?
Well, I actually started out when I was like a teenager. I was doing burlesque when I was 19 years old. That was all fine and good. I toured the United States a lot from probably, 19 to 20-something, and then I started doing more modeling. I was having a hard time with modeling. At that particular time, all anybody wanted was kind of like really, really young-looking, soft, blonde, unintimidating, that kind of look. And I was always athletic and had the, big fake boobs and more of a glamazon look. So a friend of mine who looked really similar, Devin Michaels, she had said, hey, I'm starting to do some fitness modeling instead. It's more, I think, more our avenue. Do you want to come with me on the shoot, or do you want me to submit your pictures? I was like, yeah, please do. So she submitted my pictures to a really well-known fitness photographer, and we shot with him, and after we shot with him, we shot with everybody. And what happened was, it was kind of ironic, because going from burlesque and doing adult centerfolds, then going back to fitness modeling, it's like you're going backwards almost. Everyone told us, you can't do it, it'll never happen, no one will ever accept it, no one will take you, because we'd already been naked, and then we were going back and putting our clothes back on. So theoretically, it's supposed to be the other way around.
Nobody wants that, April.
Right, I know, exactly. But somehow we managed to both do pretty well in that avenue. And then from that, Playboy's Hard Bodies had contacted me. They were doing a special issue and wanted to know if I wanted to shoot with them. I was like, hell yeah. So when that hit the newsstands, WCW contacted me and asked if I would be interested in coming in as one of their girls. So that's how I got into the wrestling business.
So before the WCW contacted you, had you ever had any interest at all in the wrestling business?
Zero. None. I absolutely hated wrestling. And I know that sounds terrible to say that, but I just couldn't stand all the fake yelling and the drama. I don't like drama. Somehow it manages to find me all the time, but I don't like it. I try not to be a part of it. To me, on TV, I don't like reality shows. I don't like any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. I liked UFC. I always liked UFC, but the wrestling to me was just too over the top. I've grown to appreciate it and respect it now. I understand what all goes into it, and it's definitely an art, for sure, for the ones that do it well.
You came into WCW right at the time when they were, some would say, at the height of their popularity there with that NWO thing.
Yeah.
With it being that that much going on and that much, I guess, attention, did that kind of draw you into the business a little more?
No, actually. It was weird. I think I'm one of the only girls. I think I am the only girl from that whole group. There was like 12 of us they looked at, and then they ended up hiring, I think, 5 or 6 of us. Of the whole group, I think I'm the only one still in the business. And I'm pretty sure it's just because I naturally go up to people and introduce myself and shake hands. I had no idea you're supposed to do that.
Right.
It was just, my dad was military. We grew up military with a lot of strict, basically very strict upbringing and a lot of manners, and I just went up to people and did that, and I think I think that was my survival rate at that particular point. I was in WCW towards the end of their popularity, starting to go into when it really got into an upheaval. I think that's why they brought us in. They wanted a little bit of eye candy to help with some of the ratings.
Right, sure.
Because WWE was doing a lot more with eye candy at that point, too. They were doing the Attitude Era. And that was with Trish, and Trish Stratus was coming in, and they hired me, and then WWE hired Lita like 3 weeks later.
Yeah, it's kind of a doppelganger there a little bit, right?
Well, it was weird because there was, as far as I knew, there was never a tattooed redhead in wrestling.
Right.
They never hired a tattooed redhead, and then right after they hired me at WCW, then they hired Lita.
Sure.
So obviously I picked the wrong company.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. April, now you left WCW, and you must have had some kind of draw to the business, though, because you left from there and went and sought out Killer Kowalski to train under. Well, how did that come about?
It was a two-part thing, actually. When we were with WCW, we had to check in at 1 o'clock. Nothing really happened till 6 o'clock at night. So there was, that chunk of time where you're just sitting around doing nothing. For me, I'm not much of a morning person, so I would get there in my sweats and I'd start running the stairs or doing my workout. I'd walk the venue, and the guys would be in the ring practicing, so I'd end up sitting down there and watching them. And at that point, they had a lot of cruiserweights and a lot of the luchas, and I really had no idea. I grew up kind of an athlete and a gymnast, and when I saw the guys going through some of the moves for their matches, I was like, holy crap, this is kind of cool. Yeah. And that's when I started kind of falling in love with the business, I guess, in a way. Right. Or actually falling in love with the ring work, at least, not the business. And what happened was I had a problem with WCW. They had not paid me, and I was still working for them. 6 weeks later, I still hadn't gotten a single check. And I had yet to even do anything on television there. We were on again, off again, on again, off again. So I went to Terry Taylor, and I asked him, I said, look, you know what, this is kind of, a couple weeks after that, I said, this is not really my cup of tea. And he's like, well, I'd hate to see you get completely out of this business. I think you could do something with it. He goes, I'm going to call Jim Ross, and I want you to see if you can get a meeting with WWE or WWF at the time. So he called Jim Ross, told him, I didn't at that time have a contract. He's like, she's free, you should grab her. So the day after WrestleMania, they had me come out to meet them, and I met with their writers, and then next thing I knew, they called me up and said, we're sending you to Killer Kowalski. So they set all that up, because trying to get a hold of Killer Kowalski on your own is really difficult.
Oh, I would imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, he had no way of, there was nothing. You kind of had to have an in to get a hold of him.
So WWE basically set it up to where you would meet with Killer?
They set it up to where I would go to school there, yeah.
Yeah, and how long did you train under Kowalski?
Well, I had to, I lived on the West Coast because that's where all the fitness stuff was. I had to pack up and drive for a couple days out to Boston, and I was there until they closed. I started working shows and everything, but I still came back and trained. I know a lot of people don't do that. Once they start working shows, they stop going to school. And about a year into, well, not even a year, I was there for a couple months. I was less than a year, and next thing I knew, WCW had folded, and so did ECW. So there went that. And in the interim, as soon as I'd moved out there, WCW offered me another job. As soon as I'd moved out to Boston and enrolled, 2 months in, they called me back and they said, we want you to ballet for Pee-wee, Alan Funk. And I was like, no way. After it was such a hassle to move out there, I had so much crap to take with me. Yeah. I hated being on the road that much. I really did. And it was such a crazy time there. I was just like, oh, God, no, I don't want to go back to that place.
So you you think you maybe read the writing on the wall a little bit there? Because I had a friend of mine who worked there at the time, Jim Mitchell, and he said it was just basically a madhouse at that time. It
was, but I think in hindsight, any TV time is good. Even a couple minutes can refresh your name. So maybe I should have done it. I don't know. There's a whole lot of maybes in my life that I wonder about. That's one of them. So with everything folding and then WWE trying to acquire all this talent and all these girls, they were trying to figure out who they were keeping and who they weren't keeping. I got lost in that shuffle.
Right.
So I started going on the road, and then one of the first places I went to England for a while and worked there, England and Ireland and Scotland, and then right from there I went to Japan. And in Japan, everybody trains. Even when you start working shows, you go back and you train when you're not working. And they said that's one of the fundamental differences between why girls in Japan are so good and why girls in America are not good. Because the minute girls start working shows, especially girls in America, because they look, if they have any kind of, eye candy ability about them, they start getting plucked out of schools far too early.
Yeah.
Before they're even ready, before half the time they can even bump or throw a forearm correctly.
Sure.
And they're already working shows. And then the ego gets involved and says, well, you're working shows, why would you keep training? That's a big problem, I think.
And you're absolutely right. That's an excellent point. You mentioned the training there, and I know you've worked a lot of independents and you've worked all over the world. I'm sure that you're a very strong pusher of going to a reputable school, because as you well know, there are so-called quote-unquote wrestling schools on every street corner now. and
yes.
What's your opinion on that?
That's a sore subject with me, because there really are not that many good schools around anymore. The only one I can really, honestly, off the top of my head think of would probably be Lance Storms in Calgary. That's absolutely excellent. He'll train you the right way. And if you're going to go, And if you want to do anything in this business, spend the freaking money, make the freaking effort, and go up there and go to that place. Seriously. There's no point in going to a half-ass school. I mean, don't go get trained by, you know, Tommy Blue Balls who got trained by somebody who got trained by somebody who went to funk school once.
Yeah.
Seriously. Here's what kills me, okay? That is not going to get your a lot of how I got so many opportunities wasn't just because of who I was, but it was because of who trained me.
Sure.
It's immediately, as soon as you say Killer Kowalski, people are like, ew.
Yeah.
So they give you a chance, and it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
Worldwide, they will give you a chance. In Japan, I worked Mexico, I worked Puerto Rico, all over Europe. Any place I wanted to go, I could because of who trained me.
Sure.
And I also got a lot of tryouts with WWE, which I managed to screw up for my own self. But who trained me got me in the front door. And a lot of people don't realize that you are who trains you. If you're getting trained by somebody who never did anything or went anywhere, how are they supposed to get you anywhere?
Absolutely.
They can't teach you that.
Absolutely.
They cannot teach you that.
Great
and the
point.
problem with a lot of schools, they try and lead students on who have not a hope in hell in this business because they want them to pay every week or every month, whereas Kowalski's, you paid up front, you paid everything. You paid all your dues up front.
Yeah.
And then you could train for as long as you wanted there. Sometimes there was a monthly maintenance fee during like the winter months when the electric was high, but it was like $20. But a lot of schools want, you know, they have these students come in, and it's more run like a business now for the schools, where in actuality that's destroying the business because they're letting people get in the ring over and over again who have no business being in there. They're never going to go anywhere. They're just ruining their knees, their back, their neck. They're spending tons of money. I see people who are dragging their families out to like Louisville and all these other places.
Yeah.
They're dragging, you know, their entire families and mortgaging their houses to go to these schools when they shouldn't. They've got no business being in this business.
Absolutely fantastic points, April.
None.
Really well said, and I greatly appreciate you for saying that. We're up on a break right now, April, and you mentioned some of your international travels. When we get back from the break, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that and the differences between working, say, in a Mexico and the United States and Japan and stuff like that. And we'll talk about that and much more when we get back here from the break with April Hunter on Inside Wrestling Radio. Coming up next.